The show you're about to see has been bootlegged continuously for the last 13 years or so. And I think people have an ongoing interest in it because this was sort of the first meeting between me and Doug and Rose McDowell and Tony Wakeford and Michael Moynihan. Is we'd all been kind of in touch. I'd been in touch with Doug and Rose and Tony for a long time and had talked to them on the phone. I'd never met them in person. This was also the first time I met Moynihan in person. We'd been in contact for quite some time, and when the prospect for this concert came up, I immediately thought of calling him and seeing if he'd be interested in being involved. Meant a free trip to Tokyo and getting to meet all these groovy people. So he was very interested, and he took an active part, and he came to San Francisco, and we flew to Tokyo together, and things were interesting from the get-go. When we got to Tokyo in the airport, there were customs people, and there was a man ahead of us who was an elderly businessman, looked very wealthy and well-to-do, and they were searching this guy. They were asking to look at his money, how much money he'd brought, and they were really giving him a hard time. When they saw me and Michael, we were dressed in black paramilitary gear, and they just waved us right through. They just stamped our passports immediately because they thought we were with some elite military division or something. So that was quite interesting. I'd wanted for a long time to do shows that were more like rallies or pagan rituals or something, where you'd consciously approach it with that attitude. Throbbing Gristle had called some of their last concerts rallies, and I started that a little bit with the 8888 show in San Francisco, but it didn't come off quite the way I wanted, and this show has much more the look that I'd wanted to achieve. I'd seen a photograph sometime in the early 80s of a rally by Oswald Mosley, who was the British Black Shirt, and it looked like something out of a science fiction film. It didn't look like a political rally at all. It had a massive podium. There were gigantic banners behind him where they displayed his symbol, which was a lightning bolt inside a circle. And when I saw that, I realized where Throbbing Gristle had gotten their symbol from. And then, too, if you look at those photographs of Mosley's rallies, and if you look at the last concert of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, he, too, copied that same thing with the same series of lightning bolts across the back of the stage. So this concert sort of embodies that on a very, very small scale. And, this is a concert that people remembered because it sort of like set an archetype. We had, before we went on, we played about an hour's worth of Iron Guard march music. It's like Transylvanian fascist march music, and it sounds like that. And this is the leader of the Iron Guard, Codriano, giving his speech. He's the man who said the Archangel Michael appeared to him and told him to save Romania. He would appear in town squares dressed in white, riding a white horse, and his group had rituals where they would taste one another's blood. They wore little bags of Romanian soil around their neck. So he's a very obscure figure, who's always fascinated me. The show's about to start momentarily. Dar prea târziu s-au înșerat. I'd wanted the show to start with 13 bell tolls, and so I went to Anton LaVey and said, "Do you have a setting on your synthesizer that sounds like a death knell?" And he went right to his keyboards and played it for me. And it was nice enough to record these 13 tolls.
Fuckers, you screwheads. Here's a man who would not take it. A man who stood up against the scum.
Generally speaking, in my use of samples, I try not to use things that are overdone or very obvious, because even though they might seem new and interesting at the time you do them, in a few years they sound totally trite. So I would generally tend to stay away from something like Speech from Taxi Driver, but living in San Francisco at the time was making me very reactionary. And when I would drive the streets at night, I would feel like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. I'd literally say to myself, someday a rain's going to come. And so I use that, but generally I try to find things that are a bit more obscure and unrecognizable.
My God, it's time to get ready to fight. My God, it's time to get ready to fight. Got to get in the streets and fight blood up to our knees. It's time for us to band together. We have to get in the streets and fight blood up to our knees. My God, it's time to get ready to fight.
Our dressing room was one floor beneath the stage. I think it was directly beneath the stage, and we had a closed-circuit TV monitor in there. So while these guys were drumming, I was sitting in the dressing room watching them drum and thinking, oh, well, that looks pretty good. I wrote Total War probably in 1987 or maybe 1988, but these concerts in Japan were the first time I actually performed it in public.
Do you want Total War? Turn Man in Two? These ones more? Do you want to rise and kill? To show the world iron will? Do you want?
I first started using a drummer in San Francisco probably in the mid-'80s. Gisela Getty was my first drummer, and she was a koto drummer in the San Francisco Koto Dojo, or taiko drummer, excuse me, taiko dojo. And she was married to John Paul Getty III, who's well known for having had his ear cut off, and she took the photographs on the back of the Best of Non CD. But I'd always wanted to do something with more drummers. I thought, I'll start the thing in Japan, I'll have 4 drummers, the next time I'll have 6, the next time 8, so on and so forth. But the logistics of getting that many people together to learn how to drum in unison, it's very unwieldy, so I didn't carry that as far as I wanted to. Even the logistics of doing this in Japan were difficult, because we rented out practice spaces and a lot of giant kettle drums, and they delivered the kettle drums without any drumsticks. So we asked the tour organizer, Keiichi, we need drumsticks. And he didn't understand the word drumsticks. And they said, the things you beat the drum with, a beater. He goes, oh, okay. So he disappears, and he's gone for half hour, 45 minutes, and he comes back with 2 sledgehammers. So we eventually got some drumsticks, and then on the night of the first concert we did in Japan, we wanted the largest kettle drums you could possibly get. So a huge truck shows up with 4 gigantic kettle drums, and the club had no entrance for bringing in equipment, and the drums were too big to get through the door. So they sent away for smaller drums, and the smaller drums were too big. They eventually ended up taking all the kettle drums apart, bringing them through nut and bolt, screw by screw, and reassembling them on stage.
Universal. There is no beginning, and there is no peace. Nor could there ever be, even if the beast man desired it so. For man.
These concerts went over really well with the Japanese because the Japanese admire militarism, and they kind of recognize that that they used to have this strong Shinto warrior creed, and that it was replaced by Buddhism. And a lot of Japanese people think that that's when things started to go bad in Japan. But so it's like we would meet normal people our age who were very conscious of this, and then people came around to the concerts like older gentlemen in three-piece suits who were actually members of Yukio Mishima's Shield Society. And when they saw our merchandising, they were very excited. And when they saw the way the stage looked, they were saying, "This is great. This is what young people should be doing." And Yukio Mishima, as you may recall, is the guy who had his own private army, the Shield Society, and they tried to take over the government of Japan and turn it back into imperial rule. They wanted to put the emperor on the throne again. And when they failed, Mishima committed seppuku, and his second, Morita, cut his head off. And there's a picture in Life magazine of his head sitting on a silk pillow.
Of the human race.
Silent war, holy war, hail the blaze.
The words to the song I originally wrote for Death in June. I thought it would be good to do a version of Silent Night, and I sent him the lyrics, and he really liked the lyrics, but unbeknownst to me, David Tibet had just done a version of this song a few years before this. It was called Christus Pigface or something, and he thought it wouldn't be good to repeat the thing that Tibet had just done. But I think these Japan concerts were the only time these songs were ever performed live, this particular song, I mean. Rose was in Strawberry Switchblade, and they had been huge in Japan and really, really popular amongst old people, kids, everybody. So everywhere we went, we would go to the train station, and a mob of teenage girls would want Rose's autograph. It was really quite remarkable. She was actually living in Japan at the time this was done. This concert was done. That horn Moynihan is playing is some ancient Tibetan horn that got damaged at the airport. The guy slammed the door of our van on it. So this, you're looking at his horn in its pristine condition before we came back to San Francisco, and it was smashed. Pardon me while I take a sniff of some snuff here. I'm addicted to this stuff, and I'm having withdrawals. Nicotine.
One more, and at the same time, we're able to
This is another sample that generally I would stay away from because it's so well known, but when you slow it down, most people don't recognize it. If you heard it at its normal speed, you'd recognize it instantaneously. And you probably do anyway. Yeah, for a number of years I'd wanted to write a short but definitive book that would be a book about the law of the claw, the law of the strong, social Darwinism, whatever. And I'd written a lot of texts and put them aside and thought, eventually when I have time I'll write an entire book about this. And I forget what year I came across Might is Right by Ragnar Redbeard. And when I read it, I thought, wow, somebody's already written this book. I don't need to write it. So for the next couple of years, I used a lot of material from Might is Right on various recordings. And eventually I thought, I'm just going to do a whole album using the writings of Ragnar Redbeard. And I did that. It was called Might. And that kind of set off this renaissance of interest in the work of Ragnar Redbeard. People were still arguing back and forth over who he really was. And LaVey took some of his material and used it in the Satanic Bible. And although he didn't actually say it was by Redbeard, he thanked Ragnar Redbeard in his introduction.
The curses on their cankered brains, their very bones decay. Go trace your fate in the iron cans, the logic of today. The strong must ever rule the weak.
You see, that hat I'm wearing belonged to David Tibet, and I asked him if I could borrow it and wear it for the concert. And I put a little Totenkopf pin on the front. And after the concert was over, I went to give him his hat back, and he said, Boyd, after what I've just seen, that hat has so many evil vibes imbued in it that I would have to perform an exorcism ritual. You just keep the hat. So I kept it for maybe, 10 years or something, and eventually he said, well, I really like that hat. I'm okay with that. If you don't wear it a lot, send it back. So I did. So if you see Tibet around London on a cold winter day, he might be wearing that to keep warm.
For liberty or death is still the logic of today. Beggar, on the brood of the lowly, may the wretched wreak havoc upon the wretched. May the rotting branch fall.
This is a song I first did when Gisela Getty was drumming for me. It was kind of like the song is Curse. It's kind of like when we did the 8888 show in San Francisco. It was the anniversary of the death of Sharon Tate, but it was also the show was done as a destruction ritual because Anton LaVey had done a destruction ritual on August 8th, and later that night people at the Tate House were killed. So we wanted to do that ritual as a destruction ritual for the 60s, and literally that event of the Tate killing brought it into the 60s. So we sort of felt like, oh, the 60s died, but the 60s mentality is still here. So let's do something that's the complete polar opposite of that, and let's, on the anniversary of this destruction ritual, let's do it again and try to put an end to the whole 60s mentality. And that 8888 show is considered by many people to have been like the Boston Tea Party of this sort of milieu that I'm in, sort of a satanic, at the time, this whole sort of anti-underground that's into order instead of anarchy, into strength instead of weakness. So in a way, our show was a success on that level, because that was really the beginning of a lot of this this sort of information getting out to the public, these sort of ideas spreading. At the time, we were a voice in the wilderness, and now there are a lot of people who share these ideas that seemed outrageous at the time.
I am the dawn. I am the blood. I am the order.
At the end of this, I give a salute with my bayonet, which is based on the Roman centurion salute. It was later used by Gabriel D'Annunzio's army. It was later used by Italian black shirts. It's difficult to see the blade in my hand because it only gleams for a moment, but I literally walked all over Tokyo wearing that uniform and a bayonet, which is incredibly illegal, but people assumed I was part of some organization and that I, had the right to wear around this weapon.
I am the death. I am the dawn.
So I think this whole militaristic style that we're projecting is something that virtually everybody who participated in this thing was into, because the military, sort of when a war is being fought, you have a clear-cut goal, and you have tactics and strategies, and you have ways to achieve your goal, and you just follow them through. And I think all of us realize that that same idea can be applied to your own life. If you live your life with tactics and strategies, you'll generally get what you want. You'll win your own war, so to speak. It's like, in his own way, Douglas Pierce had been going in that direction. Tony Wakeford had. Michael Moynihan certainly had. There's the blade. So me and Tony and Rose all rushed downstage to watch Doug and Michael drumming furiously. It's very rare that you get to see your own concert on TV while it's happening. That smoke in the back is dragon's blood incense. So I've used incense on and off over the years because it creates a kind of apocalyptic look on the stage. This is the end of our happy adventure in Osaka, Japan, 1989.